It's the day after Super Bowl. You're the guy who's the expert on this. You run the Round Hill Sports Gaming ETF. BETZ is the symbol there. Tell us how much betting was done on the Super Bowl, and how does it compare to big sporting events in the past? Was there a lot of money on this one?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for those following the industry, it should come as no surprise. But the Super Bowl is the event of the year for the betting industry. This year, when the numbers roll in, we expect the Super Bowl to set a new record in terms of handle on a single event, with more than 500 million in regulated wagers. That's up from 300 million last year, and that's being driven in part by kind of the shift that we're seeing throughout the broader economy from brick and mortar to mobile and online. That the sports betting industry, that is happening as well, and it's happening fast. And on top of that, we've seen new states that have come online in terms of legalizing sports betting. So recently we've had Michigan, Virginia, and Illinois launch. It's also worth highlighting that several billions more on top of that $500 million figure are coming in via black markets and unregulated sports books. We expect as kind of the U.S. market matures and more states come online, that's going to shift, and it's going to mean revenues for these sports book operators. But maybe more importantly, it's going to mean tax dollars for state legislatures.
Yeah. I would note you're still not, you're legal in New Jersey and Pennsylvania, Nevada, Michigan, Virginia, Tennessee, but the biggest four states in the United States, New York, California, Florida, Texas, still not legal. Is any of the big four going to change?
No, you got it, Bob. I mean, remember, sports betting only became legal at the federal level in the U.S. in 2018 with the repeal of PASPA. As you mentioned, it's now a state-by-state issue. 21 states have some form of legalized sports betting. Currently, we expect 10 to maybe even 12 more come online this year, including two of those big four you mentioned, Texas and New York. In New York right now, you have to go all the way upstate and place a sports bet in person at one of the tribal casinos. The new legislation being introduced by Cuomo would allow for mobile betting. And I think really what's going on here, kind of similar to what we're seeing in the cannabis industry, is, look, there are material budget deficits at the state level, even at the country level, outside of the U.S. How do you look to kind of bridge the gap in the wake of coronavirus? I think sports betting becomes kind of low-hanging fruit for these states' legislators to bring in additional tax revenue. So I think we're really kind of just getting started. When we look at the total opportunity here, we're talking about, for the U.S. market only, in upwards of 20 to 30 billion in terms of total addressable market for sports betting. So we really are, pardon the pun, in the early innings here.
Yeah, and where's the money? Is the real money in the live betting? Like I'm gonna bet that somebody's going to make a touchdown in the next 10 minutes on a football game, or is it in the online casino business, just playing blackjack online? Where do you think the bulk of the money is going to be?
Yeah, so, it's interesting. We've seen this evolution from daily fantasy sports to now sports betting. I think you're hitting it on the head. Online casino is really going to be the big moneymaker for these players, with sports books kind of being the kind of customer acquisition and kind of the top of funnel for these players. When you think about running a game of blackjack, it's much higher margin. It's much more predictable revenues. I mean, look at the game last night. Who could have seen that coming, right? You have to manage for that as a sports book. You mentioned live betting as well. I mean, technology is going to advance to the point where we're not even talking about the next 10 minutes. We're talking about whether the next pitch is a curve or a fastball. I think that's going to unlock real monetization opportunities when the technology gets to the point that we can see that rolled out en masse.
So Dave, we're all gonna be participating in online gambling operations. We're all going to be buying pot shares, and we're all going to be investing in Bitcoin, and that's how we're going to balance all the state budgets. Is that what's going to happen here? I mean, he's painting a pretty rosy picture.
I think that there is actually a fair amount of truth to that. I mean, certainly legalization of cannabis, a big part of that has been this push for tax revenue at the state level and at the local level. And I think we're going to see the same thing, frankly, in anything that we have previously regulated out as a quote unquote sin activity like gambling. I think this is really inevitable. Certainly, in this COVID environment where we're all still fairly trapped, it makes a ton of sense for us to move some of these activities that historically have been sort of vacation activities to the home. I mean, I live in Massachusetts. We have a handful of casinos that have opened up here, but I think most of those folks would really just rather be able to do that at home as opposed to, say, driving to Springfield or to a reservation in order to be able to play a hand of blackjack. So I think it's a bit inevitable, and I think the tax story is real.
Is it real, Jeff? I mean, I'm not asking a policy question. I know you're in the trading business, but let me just ask you in terms of these ETFs. I've watched this ETF of his, BETZ, just gather a tremendous amount of assets. It was one of the big thematic hits of the year, sports gaming. Your firm does a lot of trading around the ETF space itself. How do you feel about sports gaming as a thematic idea, and just give us some thoughts on 2021 and what will be hot thematic themes, ideas?
Well, Bob, no, it's a great question. In 2021, I get excited about themes. And let's just rewind to 2008, 2009, post-crisis. If you were just long the S&P 500 utilizing SPY, things were fine. But what changed in 2020? Obviously, we had a pandemic. So that pandemic has made a lot of not just financial advisors, not just investors, but the whole globe really rethink their exposure in these themes, specific gambling, betting, if it's pot, whatever the actual theme is. People are trying to be more thoughtful, not just on their themes, but also their sector exposure. So we run a lot of ETF model portfolios, actually powered by NASDAQ, Dorsey, right? And we're always looking for sector tilting. We're always trying to drill down and produce alpha somewhere by being different. And I think that's the thematic component. So you're seeing great ETFs like BETZ. There's a lot of different ETFs coming to market that are going to allow people to really slice and approach. And, the same way you're seeing some of the active investors in the GameStops as well as the AMC, they're looking for ideas. They're looking for conviction. They may be wrong, Bob, on the actual theme for that quarter or for that year, but nonetheless, they want to have the ability to have conviction. And that's what gets so exciting about the ETF space, and that's why I think it continues to see growth in 2021, specifically in thematic ETFs.
Yeah. I really like thematic ETF concepts because it's easy for the investing public to understand. It's easy to understand. I want to own solar.
100%.
I want to own,
100%.
Environmental, social, governance. I want to, own whatever. People think thematically. I don't have to. When I say thematic, I don't even have to explain to people. I mean, people like to think in categories. It's a more specific way of looking at it than the old GIC structure or the S&P subsectors, but it's thematic, and it makes a lot of sense. It's one of the great things about the ETF business that they can pick up on thematics very quickly and turn them into an ETF. How many times have we seen that?